Welcome back to another episode of Kicking It with Coach Red, where we bring you all the news, stories, takes, and opinions about your favorite teams from the Pacific North, fresh from the good to the bad to the Mariners.
The first place Mariners, baby.
Regular Dave Sims over here. I could get used to saying that.
Oh, speaking of Dave Sims, that atrocious call he had the other night.
Hot rumor might be going to the Yankees.
Good for him.
Oh man, that means we'd have to have Aaron Goldsmith on the call every game.
Dang it.
That would be rough. But Mariners are not rough. We're not going to be going over any game breakdowns in this episode, but we will be going over. We talked about some untouchables in the prospect pool for the Mariners. Tonight, we're going to focus on some potential targets that they can go after. We're going to discuss the 4 names out there that have been talked a lot about by not just Mariners reporters, fans, podcasts, but guys that are kind of on the block right now as a whole, and then get a little creative with some of the guys, which it sucks that we made our creative list a couple days ago, and now sorry, I'm gonna have to just shoot my shot here. Marine Layer Podcast just going after all my guys. Seen their little clippies and
Yeah.
didn't watch any of them because I don't want to steal their content. But before we dive into those targets, why don't I tell you a little bit about us? If you're looking for a guy that is just going to hit these targets like a Olympic archer, maybe you're looking for a guy like me, your boy, Coach Red. You can find me on X at the Real Coach Red, on Instagram at the Real _ Coach Red, TikTok at the Real Coach Red. Also find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, leave a comment or two. And if you're looking for a guy, maybe a little bit more erratic, sporadic, enigmatic
That's right.
with his targets, if you're looking for a guy that is going to pummel you with words, look for a guy like Cain.
Yeah, I'm Kane. You can find me over on Twitter at Kane2406, on TikTok at Kane0634. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Follow us. Freaking do it.
Let's talk some names.
Let's
talk some names.
There's some big ones out there that have been floating around.
And
they're all linked to the Mariners.
The first one that I want to talk about, which I think is probably the least likely candidate to be traded to the Mariners, I'm going to go with Pete Alonso. So you're looking at Pete Alonso currently with the Mets. The Mets have shown that they are willing to give up players, as they did with DeGrom. Not DeGrom. Verlander and Scherzer.
Yep.
Last year. So being able to do that, but they're willing to take on a lot of money, but the prospects have to be better. And Cohen will eat that money to get the higher level prospects. With Alonso being a rental, I think that it's a little bit harder to stomach a high prospect guy, because this guy is not the guy with the biggest average. Yes, he can hit the ball a country mile and hit it out of the park, but early indications on Ty France's foot is that he's going to be out about 10 days. That's it.
Yeah.
And with his resurgence, with what you've seen Locklear do in his climb so far, it's been a little hit or miss so far at his time in the bigs, batting 200 as of this last inning when we're recording. Yep. So I think that when you look at that as a whole, it's one that doesn't necessarily profile as high for me.
I can agree with that, just because, as you said, it's a rental and
it's not a position of like dire need.
No, because you do have Ty France, you have Luke Raley that can play first. You know, you might send Locklear down depending how the rest of the week goes, right? To give him ample playing time. Who knows? Ty France was one of the hottest hitters on this team before the injury.
When Ty France comes back, Tyler Locklear will be sent back down. So
Okay,
he will
that's
get
fair.
everyday playing time. He's a guy that I could see potentially when the rosters expand once he hits September, him being a guy that
To call up.
gets called up again.
Okay, I can agree with that then. But Pete Alonso, it's also he's very streaky. He will hit you the long bomb, but unlike Ty France, he strikes out a lot,
Ty France
and
strikes out a fair amount.
uh, not as of late. Not as of late.
True.
He has been hitting the heck out of the ball, and I just if you are going for a first baseman, I want a top notch guy who has some control. So I don't agree with a Pete Alonso trade. You're going to have to give up good name prospects that you can save for another trade.
Yeah, let's talk about another first base prospect that before Ty France hit his hot streak, a name that was pretty intriguing, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Um, 1.5 years left of club control. This guy is a perennial all-star. He's a two-time home run derby champ. He's a guy with power. Fielding isn't the best, but the bat plays for this guy. And with Toronto in a slog right now, needing a hard reset, um, he's a guy that could be on the block as well. With the club control, you are going to have to pay him a lot next year. You are going to have to give up a big time prospect haul to go ahead and make this deal complete.
Yeah, and as you said, it's time for the Blue Jays to retool themselves. Honestly, news broke today that Kevin Biggio was the first of the players' sons to get traded.
Well, he was DFA'd last week.
Right, but it's they had the short window and it fell apart pretty fast for him. Um, and I don't know how I feel about Vladdy being on this team again. As we said, like Ty France is still there, and I mean you would throw him at DH probably at that point, and just sorry Mitch Garver, sorry Haniger, like sucks to suck, right? Um, I don't see them making a move for a first baseman.
I think the conundrum that you really have with this Mariners team right now is with the way they're currently constructed. It's tough to give infield at bats. I think that once Polanco comes back, that Sebi Zavala sent down or DFA'd. I think you're going to see Garver catch about 2 games a week. He's going to get the day after he catches, he's not going to DH, so he's probably going to have about 3-ish games a week, maybe 4. You're going to, if they keep Bliss up on this team, because I think that you love his speed. I think that you love his late inning defense. I think you like the firepower that you get with him. I think even when Polanco does get back up, that you're going to have to try to find at bats for him at the DH spot.
Yeah,
And it's going to be tough to do that. And if you bring in a guy like Vladdy, for me, Ty France and him are both hot at the same time. You probably got Polanco on the outside looking in, or Ryan Bliss is a late inning guy, but you can't have Cal, Garver, France, and Vladdy all hitting the same game. It's just not feasible unless you're going to
right.
get wild and move Ty France to second base here and there. But you'd have a plethora of guys at second base, and I think we've all liked what we've seen with Ryan Bliss, the little electricity that he brings and the Gold
Yes.
Glove ability. I think that it's just going to be a real tough slog for them to find someone in the infield unless it's a guy that can play second base at a super high level.
And I mean, let's just get to that player right now. Um,
We talk
Boba.
about Bo Bichette.
Yeah, Boba. And that's a trade that I would like.
That's my number one prospect out of the big names that they're throwing out there. With Bo
uh,
Bichette, you've got a guy that is another all-star.
yes, and he's very good with the bat. Some shoddy defense. That's why you throw him at second because JP is undefeated at short. Um, Bo flows, man. He really does. Um, and at this point, what the trade deadline's the 30th of July. And I believe they're saying Polanco's coming back after the break. And
Polanco's not too far from going on a rehab assignment. He'll be
it,
he'll be
it,
back. He'll be back before the end of this month.
I think that if you do make a play for Bo, that Polanco is probably in that
If you
trade.
go for Bo, Polanco's gotta go.
I think so at that point, right? And then Ryan Bliss possibly gets sent back down until September call ups, so he gets that everyday playing time. Um, I just the idea of Bo Bichette, like, sorry, Demo, like you just play against lefties now,
Well, Demo can still be your super utility guy. He can play all
right?
the positions at a high level. I think the thing with Bo that you brought up bring that shipping out Polanco. I think that if you do that, you're also going to have to throw in a pretty high prospect haul. Bo's going to be the package where you're throwing in a Cole Young.
Yeah,
And I think with the timetable, with what you've got with potentially Bo and with Cole Young probably being ready to hit the big squad potentially as early as next year, I think that that helps the Blue Jays. You're going to have to throw in some other big prospects too to make
yeah,
that
yeah.
happen.
Harry Ford most likely in that deal.
And then
Um,
probably a low level guy
yeah, yeah,
on top of it. So I think that, but the problem with the catching prowess that they have, I don't think that Harry Ford's a guy they'd want on the table. To be completely honest, I think you probably are looking at Ty Pete,
yeah.
Johnny Formello, high risers in the squad, potentially Las Montes. I think that Harry Ford's kind of off the table because they don't really. I mean, you can never have too many catchers, but you also can because guess what? The Blue Jays at one point had too many catchers and they had to go make a trade to get one of them off the team to the Arizona Diamondbacks last year.
Oh yeah, Gabriel Moreno. That's right. That's right.
But I think with Bo, he's that type of guy that is electric. I think that Polanco, it's been rough. I think that he is well liked in the clubhouse, but I think that just having a little bit of a fresher start, I think would help get him back in the central time zone might help him out
Yeah,
a little bit too. But with
Eastern.
Bo, he's a guy that can profile into this lineup at
Yeah,
say six,
and it would just be
2 or 6.
flashy all
He might
around.
be he might even turn into your permanent two hitter. So you'd be going JP, Bobichette, Julio, Cal, Garver, Rayleigh, France. Like the lineup gets better and longer. And then it really does allow Demo to kind of have a little bit more freelance to go play at different positions. It's another instance too where you could see a guy like potentially Dominic Canzone get sent down if you make that acquisition to get him some more regular at bats and get that batting average up. The power's been playing for him, and that wasn't his biggest tool coming to this team. It was they saw power in the swing, but he hadn't produced it. Now you're really just seeing a lot of
Power all
power,
around. Yeah,
but the all around game isn't really translating as well. So I think that with
yeah,
that, he's the guy that I think is a good cherry on top. And if you get that extra year of club control, so you really make that push right now for this year and next year with that trade, and hopefully you can make a play. And if you go far enough and you're having enough success next year, it's an attractive spot for him to stay.
right. I think let's get to the highest profile player now.
I think it might be the highest probability.
That's true. Um, let's talk about Luis Robert.
Robert.
It's
I say
Robert.
Robert, but it is Robert. I just think it sounds better. Luis Robert.
Yeah. Uh, man, this dude just has power on power, and he hits at a pretty high clip when he doesn't start the season injured.
Well, that's the big that's the big drawback. There's two drawbacks. Uh the health that he's had in his time in the big leagues and the percentage that he strikes out at. He's a high strikeout guy, but when he puts the ball in play, it's with a lot of force. Saw something on Twitter/X earlier this week. And so Luis Robert debuted in the COVID shortened 2020 season. So you got about a third of a season, right? Julio debuted in 2022. So in terms of service time, you've got 1.33 years of time that Luis Roberts had in the bigs more than Julio. Going into
Yep.
this series, Julio is trailing him in at bats by 8.
Yes. That has been his biggest problem. There
I
was
think getting him out
the
of center too, because he's not bumping Julio, another plus defender when he's on the field too, and especially when he's late innings.
and this
It's
this
huge.
this is more for the long term, right? He's been in the bigs the same amount of time as Julio, as you said, just
More. He's been
a
in the league for more than Julio.
or was who was the oh, it was him and Kyle Lewis that were going back and forth for rookie of the year.
Correct.
That's right. Okay. Um, but this is also a guy that if you can get him healthy long term, this is great because you're gonna have two very plus outfielders out there with cannons and both hitting for 30 plus a year.
Well, and you look at his full year healthy last year on still wasn't a good White Sox team. The dude was an absolute stud. The one thing that I think will take his market down is that health. And the White Sox are just an enigma right now, right? We've been seeing it in this series, but their ownership, they've typically held on guys a little too long before they make the trade. And they came out saying at first, they weren't really listening to offers at the beginning of the season. Now they're aggressively pursuing trade
Yes.
partners, but then they're also you can't be aggressively pursuing trade partners and saying that the package you want to get is comparable to the package that the Padres gave up for Juan Soto. At the
Yeah.
time, Juan Soto had 2.5 years of club control. Juan
Yes.
Soto had never experienced injuries, walks at an extremely high clip. His on base power is crazy. Juan Soto is one of the top players in the league. I do not put Luis Robert in that category. I think that he is in that tier where he's not great all the time because that health brings it down. He's just like right below it. You know, he's a guy that when healthy can do big things, but also with that high strikeout rate, it makes it a little bit tougher. But I do think that the pop that he profiles with on this team, we saw it on Monday night when he took a 96-mile-an-hour heater high and tight from Logan Gilbert and put it into the upper tank and somehow kept it fair. I don't know how he did it. And I don't know how he got the launch angle to get it up there. It was bananas. You might
Yeah.
have heard Kane's reaction at the very end of the episode. Was like, that was when Luis Robert hit that dinger.
Yeah. And yeah. The dude is just unreal though. Like,
He is real. I saw him play. He's real.
well, right. But he's just crazy at the plate though. Like, as you said, last year's one of his full healthy years, he was one of the only bright spots on a very bad White Sox team.
And it's not like the White Sox have a lot of pillars in their team right now. I mean, you look at this team across the board, they've got a bunch of 1 year flyers. I kind of like their catcher.
Corey Lee,
Yeah, I
he
kind of
used to
like
be in
him.
the I believe he used to be in the Astros organization.
Yeah, I like him, but when it comes to really a lot, they got Corey Jolks from the Astros, who's a solid player. But this is a team that I think would be prime to get a Harry Ford
Yeah, right.
on this team and centered around him. You'd go Harry Ford. You're probably looking at Jonathan Classe, I think would probably be a good name to throw in there because he's MLB ready to take over
Mm-hmm.
those reps. And I think you could also throw in a guy like I know you don't like to give him up, but I think Arroyo or Fenlon Celestin would be another name that would be pretty high on their list.
I did see a tweet earlier where Arroyo blasted a home run and Mariner Muse on X said trade stock up.
Yeah, I think that for any of these four guys, they're the highest profile guys. I don't think Alonso's going to happen. So let's just say about the three last guys we talked about, it's going to be uncomfortable to give out the prospect hall to go get these guys.
But that's kind of what has to happen.
That's what teams that compete for World Series do.
Yeah, it's pretty cut and dry, right? When you see all these, when the let's throw it back to when the Dodgers traded for Mookie Betts, right? They gave up their best prospects. They're ones that were like, we can't trade them, but they had to trade them for Mookie Betts. And look what that got you. Mookie Betts is one of the greatest players I've ever seen. And you got to get uncomfortable. You got to get weird to make a World Series push because this team can do it.
Yeah, I think they've got a lot of the tools to do that. But if the really only huge trade that the Mariners team have made in recent years, really under the Jerry DiPoto regime, was when they traded for Luis Castillo. And that was an uncomfortable trade. But you saw dividends pay off in the playoffs right away, down the stretch and in the playoffs. He was absolutely nails. So if you're going to look at what you typically see with this Mariner squad, we're going to get you some guys that might be a little bit more under the radar. The prospect haul to go get these guys isn't going to be as exorbitant. Cain, who's the first little outside of the box type of guy that you've got, and they could be guys also that potentially are not really on the block as of right now.
I'm gonna start off with good old faithful, old beloved, one would say. Uh Kind of maybe glue this bullpen together once again. Paul Sewald. Who doesn't love him? Honestly, the city loves him. The team loves him. You throw him back in his old position, be the setup guy, and I think he could really, get with the pitching gurus again. That Arizona Diamondbacks team is atrocious this year. You're looking at it right now. We won the trade, and basically all the trades we made with them over the past few years. And
I
I
think
mean,
I wouldn't say that they lost the trade with Ketel Marte and Taiwan Walker.
yeah,
I
that's
mean,
true.
I would say that they probably won that trade because of
I'd
Ketel
say
Marte.
the last couple years, but then we also got Mitch Haniger for his good years.
Well, I mean, it's not like the Zebi Zavala, Carlos Vargas for Eugenio Suarez deals really worked out for either squad.
Yeah.
Um,
So
I do think with Paul Sewald, like you said, beloved fan favorite. He's dealt with a little bit of injury this year, was out for some extended period of time, but with them not being as competitive, we know that Paul Sewald excels in high leverage games. When you throw him out there, when the pressure's not on, uh, it's not the best. He's just getting work in, and then he really ratchets it up for winning time. And having a guy like that in the bullpen, you've got Stanek, who has been very solid as of late. You remove the debacle with the Royals, and he's been pretty nails for the last month or so. Munoz coming back, dealing with the lower back injury. Don't love that. You're hopefully going to see Gregory Santos probably around the break. He's progressing to seeing some live hitters. He's been throwing off mounds. He's been throwing bullpen sessions. So to really make a strength of yours even stronger, I talked in the last episode. That's why Logan Evans is kind of getting fast tracked because I don't like making big pushes to go get that. But when you look at the prospect haul that we got, I mean, Rojas at the time was looking like a solid piece. Canzone at the time was looking kind of like a 4A type player. And Bliss had some promise, but was really under the radar type prospect. I think you can get this for, a Jonathan Class A. Shoot, maybe even having Dom Canzone go back
yeah, I agree.
because he's older, a little bit more injury history, but he's still a high profile guy. So you're gonna see some teams calling about him. And if he does get moved, I think everyone in the Pacific Northwest would want Paul back at
Yes,
T-Mobile Park.
I agree. Who's your first candidate?
First candidate, I think this one's going to be a little bit tough because it's in division. It's Brent Rooker. And Brent Rooker had not done much up until last year with the A's. And he's still continuing to hit the ball out at such a high clip. Looked at his stats today. He's cooled off. I think he was batting about 280 when we were down in Oakland for the series, cooled down to about 264. But the guy strikes out a ton. I think he's running like a 33-35% strikeout rate. And couple that with at the time it was like a 280 batting average. To have your go for hits or strikeouts at that high of a clip above 50% is crazy.
Yeah, Brent Rooker came out of nowhere, and the power is just always on display. The dude hits bombs left and right. He puts them out of the stadium at a high percentage rate. And just the exit velocities this dude gets is unreal. It really is.
The the thing that detracts this a little bit for me is it causes a little bit of a logjam because he's not really suited to play the outfield every day. He's should primary as a DH, but like we stated earlier, be a pretty big logjam at that. And if I'm sitting there, he's ready, Mitch is ready. When I'm facing a lefty, oh my God, do I not want to see that defense in my corner outfield spots? I mean, I've seen Mitch make some good plays. He can't get to everything, still got a hose, but the defense in those types of game would just be, oh man, I don't love it at all. And that kind of
Yeah,
creates that roster logjam. And it's going to be tough because even though the A's will continually sell until they sell the team out of town, right? And get to potentially Vegas, they're going to make these moves and continue to prospect hoard. And once guys making some money, get them out the door to get more new prospects in. But I think with Rooker, I think they would not send him to the Mariners in division.
I don't think so either. And that brings me to my next target, which is also in division. But I think this could happen with the right package. And that is Kyle Tucker. The dude is a cheat code. He is one of the best players in the American League. I mean, he's proved it year after year with the bat. Let me see. 2024 here. He's hitting. That doesn't say batting average there.
He's an MVP caliber candidate this year.
Yeah. He's hitting 266 with 19 home runs. The dude is a base hit magnet, and he has just one of those lefty swings that work, and this gets you an all-around hitter, and he's a plus outfielder.
Year and a half club control as well.
I believe
Uh,
so.
this is the type of guy that I think you totally make a play for. This would be another one of those. He's going to be right up there with Bo Bichette and the haul that it would take to get him. You're going to have to get uncomfortable. You're going to be looking at potentially a Cole Young that can be moved. Another guy that probably profiles pretty well in this deal is Cole Emerson. What are they going to do with Bregman? Cole Emerson profiles as third baseman. I think it fits with them. Catcher's kind of a hole right now. I mean, Yanni Diaz back there, he's okay, but I think that a Harry Ford type player, or it's not like Altuve's going to play forever. Cole Young is another guy. Your top three guys are going to be heavily talked about if you start hearing rumors
And
where the Kyle Tucker thing goes. It's going to be a freaking haul.
and you're going to trade one or two players on the Mariners as well.
Yeah, you're
Like,
probably going to have to give up an MLB guy to get it over. I think the one that you could probably see Polanco, I think is going to probably be at a point unless he comes back and is just on fire and comes back sooner than we think and can just really get it going. But yeah, I think you're going to have to give up a piece that you don't want to give up at the major league level. And it's probably
right.
I could very well see that being a guy that's played well, maybe like it's tough. I'm not they want guys that are going to have longevity. So it's not like you've got a ton of guys that fit that category, but I could very well see a Dom Canzone be
Yep.
moved to just insert right field for them the day after the trade.
And then watch him just explode in Houston. But Yeah, I do think this is a guy you go and get. He is and proven in the World Series. He has had very big moments in very big spots. And I just think that it's too good of a bat to not have on this team. So, coach, who's your last target?
Last target is going to be Jazz Chisholm uh,
Oh yeah,
for
I
the
like
Marlins,
that.
because when you look at his player profile, Marlins are very bad, right? They've already shipped off Luis Suarez,
Right.
Arise. Um, so the thing is, he's got positional versatility because when he was on the team, he got moved from second base into the outfield. He can play outfield for you. He can play second base. The one knock on him is he's never been seen as a great teammate. But I also want to throw that out there. It's not like Miami's had a good team or a good veteran leadership structure there, really.
Right.
They have some guys that are tied up with the team, but then they also just funnel guys in 1 year deals like crazy. So I think if you bring him on this team, few years older than Julio, I think that energy would feed pretty well. You've
Yeah.
got you've got Cal Raleigh, who I think commands the room. I think JP could be in
JP.
his ear. I think that Mitch Haniger is another great candidate for a leadership role. And I think that you could even look at Ty France and Luke Rayleigh, just like, hey, this is a clubhouse. We're going to take care of business on the field. We're going to have some fun, because it seems like he can get frustrated, especially with coaching staff, teammates. And I think that with this, you kind of get a discount because of that, right? I don't think that he's going to be the hottest name that's out there. He has been getting thrown around. I think the Marlins are going to be open for business. You're going to have to compete against one or two other teams. But I think this is a guy that could plug and play a few different positions for you. And that roster versatility, I think, you could see Demo going back as part of that package. It would break my mother freaking heart, but
Same.
but it's a guy that has some pedigree.
Yeah. And, as you said, with the Marlins, I've heard a lot of crazy stories coming out of there. And there is a lot of hazing. There is a lot of just not good vibes. And, it all started in the Jeter era, right? Where he just fire sold everything. And this team has not recovered since then. They had one special playoff push during the COVID shortened season. And outside of that, they have done nothing. And Jazz Chisholm would fit right in on this team. As you said, I think JP likes to have a good time. And you know what Jazz likes to do? Have a good time. Like, you can see it. He's got the personality that fits with the roster that we have constructed. Like, he's got a big personality, but so does JP, right? You see it
So
on
does
the field.
Julio.
So does Julio.
So
Like,
does Kirby. So does Lo Gilbert. So does Munoz. So does Stanek.
yeah, exactly. Like, you have such a good foundation here that I think he would fit right in.
And I don't know, because I couldn't find it anywhere in any of the stat pages. Tried to look at a couple different articles, but I couldn't really find something that pinned it down. But I do believe, just this is my opinion, the fun differential is a lot higher in Seattle than it is in Miami.
Hey, I think you might be right about that.
Yeah, speaking of something that I think that we need to talk about today, extend Cal Raleigh. And
Oh, make him the highest catcher in baseball, please.
there there's rumblings out there going in even into last year that with him being a Scott Boras client, that Scott Boras lets his guys get to free agency and then they test the market. I think that Cal is extremely beloved on this team. You could see it in the offseason after he made his comments. It seemed like the ownership listened. They had him involved in some of their decision-making process. Not like he was making the decisions. You see what he does defensively. You see how he calls the game, how much this pitching staff loves him. His clutch gene is crazy. The other thing I think plays in, talking about Boris's clients last year did not get the money that they were expecting. They also haven't been playing super well this year. So there's a little bit of a blemish on all Scotty B's record there. I think that if there was a guy that would break the mold, Cal seems like a team first guy. He doesn't seem like the type of player that's going to chase just the biggest dollars. He's going to want to find a situation that fits. He's a guy that was here during the upturn in recent years. And I think that he would be the type of guy that would say, I will take 1 million, $2 million a year less on the average to get Seattle its first championship.
Yeah.
You look at the friendships he's made with Kraken players. Every person on this team loves him. He's a cult hero just from ending the drought. But then the commercials, the big dumper, you look at all these things and how well he has ingrained himself into this team. He's still rooming with pitchers. I mean, him and was it Miller or Wu are
Woo.
rooming together, and
It's
he's
him
like,
and Woo.
no one puts in more work than Cal Raleigh. Cal Raleigh eats, sleeps, dreams, pisses excellence, and then gets back to thinking about baseball.
I mean, let's just put it out on the table, right? I don't think there's not many hitters in the MLB that do what Cal does in the seventh inning or later. And
He's
right,
leading the
that's
MLB in
or
RBI
he's
seventh inning
tied.
or later. Nope,
He's
he
tied.
took the lead. I saw it
Oh, he
on a
took
thing.
it.
He
I
has a
saw it.
one RBI lead over Adley Brushman. You want to fight about it? Because I saw it. Unless they're false advertising on Root Sports Mariners broadcast, you bring that up with them.
All right. The dude is just insane, man. I mean, all of the stats were right with runners in scoring position last night. He was hitting 268 with 30 RBIs in like 6 home runs. That's insane to do, and he's done it all year. And the guy just he plays every day almost, or at least hits every single day. He gets abused behind the plate constantly, and he still gives you 110%. Pay this man, make him the highest paid catcher in the league, make him for life, build a goddamn statue of this man once his career is over.
Speaking of statues and extensions, I'm going to throw something at you that you weren't expecting. Here we go. Extend Scott Service. Extend him. We love Scott Service. Scott Service is awesome. Cal Raleigh gets rung up on a questionable pitch and is seconds away from getting tossed in Monday night's game. Scott Service comes out at just the right time, says the right word, gets ejected. Cal Raleigh then gets to stay in the game and hits a walk-off grand slam. So Scott Service actually won the game because Cal Raleigh wouldn't have been in that position. I mean, granted, I think Garver was still available that day, so he could have popped back in. He probably could have hit a ball into the outfield with how hot he's been lately.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not discounting that we still wouldn't have won the game, but it wouldn't have been in as dramatic of fashion.
Yeah.
So Scott Service, he seems like a coach that the players really gravitate towards. He's a guy that lets people be who they are. He'll wear it for the organization. He'll wear it for when the team struggles. And I don't think he gets enough credit. He's been in some talks in the past for coach of the year, like with Kevin Cash that one year. It was basically done. And he didn't win. And I think that it's very underrated. He is a guy that was here through the rebuild and has consistently put this team in a position to do the best they can. Yes, does he make questionable calls? Sure. Does he make questionable decisions, mainly with the bullpen? Sure. But every manager does. When
Yeah,
you're in something, sometimes you just got to shake it up a little bit, right? And I think that Scott Service is the perfect blend. He is a guy that I would love to see continue to manage these Mariners for many moons to come.
yeah. I think he has been one of the most beloved since Lou.
The the most beloved since Lou.
Yeah. So it's a pretty high mark there. Scott has been great. As you said, this team loves playing for him. And you've seen it in the last couple years, especially during the playoff run, right? You saw how hyped he got about basically anything the team did. And I think he's a guy that can really pull you aside, kind of pull your head out of your ass and get you back in the right position.
When he did it with Cal, when Cal had his first cup of coffee and then got sent back down, when he came back up, he said, "Hey, I don't need you to hit 300 for me. I need you to play to your strengths, which is putting the ball out of the ballpark when we need you to do it." And Cal exploded from that point forward, right? Became the everyday guy. You had a little bit of injuries to Tom Murphy, and then the following year, Tom Murphy's very injured. So Cal Raleigh really stepped forward, and a lot of that is Scott's a former catcher. He knows the game inside and out. The catcher, like Wu was saying about Cal, the catcher has to be locked in on so many different things. You're looking at the opposing pitcher to see how you're going to hit off him that day. You're going to look at what your matchups are with the entire hitters on the other team. What's my guy throwing? What's hot for him? What's not? Where can we attack these hitters? He's putting in the work, and I think Scott Service puts in the work, and I think that he needs to be rewarded. And I'm so sick and tired of like the fire let go of Service when they hit a little skid. No, extend that man and keep him here for years to come.
Sorry. Oh, that was funny. Yeah, I agree with that. I just extend service. Just extend Cal. Just do it, please. I think he's literally the glue that holds this team together. If you don't have Cal, this team is not going to be good after this. I really think that.
And kind of on that same vein, just do it. Please give us a follow over on social media. If I meet your boy Coach Red on X at the real Coach Red, on Instagram at the real underscore Coach Red, TikTok at the real Coach Red. Also find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, leave a comment or two. Kane, where are you at?
You can find me on Twitter at Kane2406, on TikTok, Kane0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Balls. Do it, freaking do it.
And as always, stay fresh.
Stay fresh, peeps.
Peace.